Welcome to the Dog Expert Podcast, the podcast dogs would want you to listen to. Powered by canineprinciples.com, helping passionate dog people go from feeling unsure and overwhelmed to confident, compassionate and science savvy through a rich library of online courses and formal qualifications. Each week on the podcast, we dive deep into the real, raw and rewarding world of dogs. This isn't about obedience. This is about understanding. Because dogs aren't problems to solve. They're free-thinking, sentient beings to connect with. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of the Dog Expert Podcast. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's lovely to have you here. I am flying solo this week. Emily couldn't join us, but I am delighted to have a fabulous guest joining us. So this lady and I have been around each other's spaces for probably about 8 years, I guess, 7-8 years now. And she, to me, has been a source of sanity and friendship and much more over the years in the dog space. We've got very shared values, and I'm really excited to speak to her today on the podcast so that you can learn more about not only ethical best practice in your business as a pet professional, but if you are looking to employ the services of a pet professional, what you need to be looking out for, what you need to be asking for. She really advocates raising standards in an industry that's unregulated for the dog's best interests, but also to keep pet professionals safe and practicing well too. So Vicky Skinner founded Animal Focused and Animal Focused Alliance. She's an education specialist, comes from an education background, and is a massive welfare advocate. So welcome to the podcast, Vicky.
Thank you very much. What a fabulous introduction. I wasn't sure it was me you were talking about.
Well, it's very true. There have been times it's not always easy being a business owner in this space, particularly when you are beating a drum that not everyone agrees with or not everyone wants to listen to. And you've definitely been my sounding board over the years and someone that I can rely on. So it's a pleasure to have you here. How did you get involved in the world of animal education and the values that you've got around that now? How did they become instilled?
So I've always been around animals, dogs and horses predominantly. I grew up around both of them. I volunteered from the age of 14 with a local riding for the disabled establishment. I was there right the way up until I went to university at 17. And I went off to university to study animal behaviour. So my degree is in animal science, in brackets, behavioural studies. And for me, those behavioural studies were very much companion animals, in particular dogs. Obviously, some people on the course were looking at conservation behaviours and wild animal behaviours. That wasn't really where my interest was. It was very much in dogs in particular, but really any sort of companion animals, dogs and horses was where the interest was. So I finished my degree and I went back to Scotland and worked at the Riding for the Disabled as an instructor and centre manager for about a year. And then for various reasons decided that a little town in Scotland was no longer where I wanted to be. So I ended up moving down to Northamptonshire for a teaching job. So I started teaching animal care, animal management, animal welfare at a local land-based college. Very young, inexperienced, and not much older than a lot of the students there. So I was there then for about 13 years. And during that time, I sort of progressed teaching across the levels, special educational needs, right the way up to degree level students, and progressed to an advanced practitioner, which meant I was then supporting other members of staff. Was involved in the quality assurance processes, assessment writing, assessment undertaking, and developing new staff there. From there, I went on to a different trade association where I was head of education. And that was my first sort of experience of supporting pet professionals, not those people who were aiming to be a pet professional, but those people who were actually in the role and doing the job. While I was there, we developed a number of courses and qualifications to support those pet professionals. And then 2.5 years ago, I was made redundant. So I sort of went back to my roots at that point and set up Animal Focused, Purple Animal Focused, which is this one, this logo. And Purple Animal Focused delivers canine assisted therapy, so very much back to my roots at that side of things, but also continues to support pet professionals. We developed a range of short online courses, things like lone working, things like safeguarding for animal encounter therapy, people who are going into care homes, who are going into schools, who are working with individual learners. So that's very much the people safeguarding and actually being able to recognise when there's signs of stress or potentially abuse happening in those establishments and what to do about it. So we developed a range of sort of support courses for pet professionals, and we started working within animal licensing through various connections that we had with City of London, and we developed our own qualification for animal licensing officers. So those people who are going out into pet shops, dog daycare, home boarders, breeders, riding establishments, kennels, catteries, all of those licensed premises. The inspector that comes out to see you legally has to be suitably qualified, and that involves holding an Ofqual regulated qualification covering those subjects and containing practical skill development. So we developed that for both England and Wales. The dog has arrived. So that was for both England and Wales. We've now had approximately 70 inspectors go through our training, which is great, and hopefully really starts to standardise what licensees are experiencing when they're going through the licensing process. So that was Animal Focused Purple. And then, a bit like you, Jo, don't stand still for long. There's always something else to do. There's always something else that we can work on. There's always something that we can improve. So in April this year, Animal Focused Alliance was born. And it's very much about supporting pet businesses to do the very best in everything they do. So whether that is raising animal welfare standards, or whether that is running a business effectively and efficiently through licensing, maybe through qualifications, through training, through support, but really just to get the pet industry across the sector united and all pushing for the same thing, which ultimately should be the best possible care for the animals that they're working with, but also that they're sending back home. It's all well and good you having a very holistic or ethical approach to grooming, to training, to home boarding. But if they're going back to owners who don't understand the signs of stress, or what foods are toxic to dogs, or how to groom their dog, or how to continue with this training in a way that underlies the same as your belief, you're almost fighting a losing battle. So it's about giving those pet professionals the skills, knowledge and support to really raise standards across the sector and for animal welfare. And that, in a very intensive nutshell, is where we are.
So it was pointed out to me last week that I get so excited about the guests that are coming on, I forget to introduce myself and Emily, who's my co-host usually. So for those of you that aren't familiar with me, I'm Jo Middleton, and I am the Director of Studies for Canine Principles, the Principal of the International School for Canine Psychology, and I also head up the International Institute for Canine Ethics, or known as ICE. So you will see why there is so much synergy between what we do and where Vicky's at with her businesses and what she's doing, because we have a united front about the ethical stance that is needed by pet professionals and the standards that need to be met. So we're on the same train. If you're listening to this rather than watching us as we're recording. When Vicky's referring, just for clarity, when Vicky's referring to animal focused purple, it's because the logo's purple. That's not the business name. The business name is animal focused and there's a purple logo. She's differentiating between animal focused and animal focused alliance, which is more of a, what would you say, blue and purple? Blue.
Yes, still very calm and tranquil,
Yeah,
but yes, a little bit more colour. And in my mind, when I set up the alliance, it felt really sensible to keep the animal focused bit. In hindsight, maybe I've just muddied the water a little bit.
No, not at all. The two sit really well together. And with animal focused alliance, whether you are involved in the canine world or another animal industry. I hate the word industry when it comes to our
activity. That's what they've got for in licensing. Animal activity.
Yeah. So what would you say being an ethical animal business really means, Vicky?
I think there's two strands to that question. I think there's what is an ethical business, and then there is what is the ethics behind working with animals.
Oh, I like that.
So I think for me, an ethical business is a business who is running professionally. We see it a lot, in particular with dog walkers. There's somebody on your local Facebook page saying, "Oh, I'm walking dogs at the weekend now. Do you want me to walk their dog?"
For a $5.
And there are people who love dogs and, you know, are absolutely potentially doing it for the right reasons, but they haven't considered the fact that they are charging for a service, and therefore they are putting themselves in that professional bracket, and therefore there are requirements that they should have in place. And that's everything from, actually, are they declaring their income? You know, have they got an accountant? Is this, if they're earning less than £1,000 a year, it's much less of an issue. But if they're doing it regularly, they're doing, you know, informal home boarding or whatever, then you soon reach that threshold. So are they declaring their income? Are they insured? And that's, as a minimum, public liability. Are you going to, if the dog that is in their care is injured, either your dog or your dog happens to injure another dog, is your insurance responsible for that? It should be their insurance, but you have to know that they have that in place. Have they got the knowledge and skills to be doing it? Like, most of us listening will have dogs, and you know, we would like to think that we understand our dogs, but taking out a pack of 6 dogs to the local park, into the Forestry Commission, into the middle of nowhere, is very different. You have to be able to understand those dogs' behaviours, communication, when one dog is scared, when one dog is overexcited, when one dog is coming into season. So there should always be an element of training involved in that, even you know, as I don't want to say just a dog walker, because that's really not what I mean, but you know, even the student down the road who's suddenly needing some extra income, if you're charging for a service, you have to be professional within that service. So there is that sort of ethical business side. Actually, this is a business and I'm running a business properly and I'm putting all the appropriate precautions in place. And then there is the I'm working with animals ethically, which is actually I'm considering their welfare in everything I do. So we deliver canine assisted therapy as Purple, animal focused, and our priority within that has always been the dog's welfare. We are very conscious that while we are supporting learners in a classroom, individual learners, the elderly in a care home, actually we have always an eye on the dog. Is the dog starting to pant? Is that dog starting to pant because it needs a drink and actually the care home's quite warm? Or is that dog starting to pant because it's noisy, it's a little bit smelly, you know, there's strange sounds, there's strange sensations, there's too many hands near the dog. And actually we always have an eye on our dog to say, this dog needs a break, this, you know, we need to take a break, we need to go and distract the dog, we need to get a toy out, we need to just leave the building and go for a wee. So that is the ethical pet professional side of things, that actually the animal's welfare is what comes first in everything that you do.
So with regards to the other side of that, when you are running a business, So, for example, many years ago, I had a pet care business. It started off with me just going out. My USP at the time was that we were insured, had current dog first aid certification, DBS check as well, because we were going into homes where sometimes there'd be minors at home on study leave or vulnerable adults. And just making sure that we were really at that professional standard compared to other local providers, I guess, who weren't necessarily taking things that seriously. And I'd love to think that that's had a ripple effect in my local area, because now it is more of a norm that people do look out for those things. But what really disappointed me was that I can count on one hand over the years that I was running that pet care business, and I built it up so that we ended up with a fleet of vans on the road. I had a pet care manager in place, and then I sold the business on. So at every level, there was a new set of standards that needed to be brought in, new systems, new processes around staff welfare, risk assessments, the making sure that there were lone worker safety policies in place when walkers were going out on their own. And each level, there was something new going on. But we'd get people applying for jobs who were just thinking it would be skipping through the fields with the wind through their hair kind of thing. And when I'd go out and check clients in, I can count on one hand the amount of times that I was actually asked for copies of our insurance certificate. And they're handing over the keys to their house, a family member, albeit furry, and everything, the contents of their home, and saying, hey, there you go and skip through the fields with the wind in your hair with my dog. And it's not like that at all. We really need to set the bar on how dog guardians or owners are actually approaching getting a pet professional service involved with their dog, and raising awareness, educating around that side of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as the Alliance, we would like to think that we will get to the point that our logo is effectively that stamp of reassurance for a pet owner. You see the logo in the van window, in the shop window, on their website, and you think actually they are committed to doing things properly. But we are very new and we're still a long way from doing that. We have recently, just in the last week and a half, launched our very first Pet Pro Challenge, which is all about demonstrating that you are properly insured and professionally responsible. You don't have to be a member for this. You can sign up on our website and download the logo, which I am currently displaying. And you can put that out there, because what we want to do is we want to, exactly as you were saying, encourage owners to make informed choices. There is a huge assumption that you are insured, that you're qualified, and actually that's not often the case.
No.
So what we want to do is we want to get as many pet businesses out there displaying this logo so that it does become recognisable, and it makes pet owners question, okay, well, I've seen this logo on my dog groomer. Let me ask my dog walker, are you insured? And actually, let's start this conversation, because change will be led by the public. It will be led by people making informed choices. So for us, I mean, as Purple Animal Focused, when we get an inquiry, the first thing we do is we send out a zip file that contains our fee structure, but it also contains our insurance document, our license document, little profile of the dog, and a frequently asked questions form. And that goes out it's the first thing we do when we get an inquiry, because then we know that they have seen all of that and they have that information. But we're very rarely asked for it. It's not something, we're more likely to be asked for our DBS if we're visiting a school or a care home than we are anything else. And actually, the risks for something like insurance, really, that's like, if I go to a care home or a school, I'm not left unaccompanied. There's always a member of staff with me. So the DBS, while it's nice to have, isn't really helping because I'm not left unattended. Whereas insurance, like, if my dog bites somebody or chews up their chair leg or pees all over the carpet, not that she would, then actually my insurance is there to cover all that. But it's not something that's asked about. And I completely agree that pet owners are handing over their babies in lots of cases without effectively due diligence.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, there are platforms out there that allow you to have your dog homeboarded without ever seeing the house it's going to.
Yeah.
That
I had it.
blows my mind.
Yeah, I had people literally throwing their dogs at me for home boarding when I was offering home boarding, coming from like a couple of hours away to come to my house, or wanting to drop their dogs off. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, one, I've got resident dogs and I need to make sure that the dynamics are right and that it's built up gradually and they get used to each other's scents first. And then once, you know, maybe you've got a blanket of my dogs, I've got a blanket of your dog, and then we do things gradually. You don't just dump your dogs at my door. That's not how this works, because that's not in the well-being best interests of any of the dogs, never mind your best interest, my best interest. But I think if we can work towards making it the norm and educating the guardian as a pet professional, saying to them when they're contacting you, this is a checklist of what we're providing you with, and you can use that checklist with anyone else who has contact with your dogs on a professional level, then that's really going to start having a ripple effect across the board and helping to raise the bar. But from with your insurance challenge there, what's it called? Sorry, Vicky.
So it's Pet Pro Challenge, and this Pet Pro Challenge is properly insured, professionally responsible.
Love it. So with that challenge, so there's a couple of instances that come to mind. One is when one of my dog walkers lost a client's keys. So we needed to get the locks replaced and the sets of keys done. Luckily, that we had that covered through our insurance. Another is when I went out to check a German Shepherd in for walks. He'd not long been rehomed. He'd come from a background they didn't know, but he was found in the mountains in Wales. And he was just jumped on the sofa next to me, curled up, went to sleep during the check-in while I was going through all the forms. Now looking back, I wonder whether he was actually asleep and he was just keeping me close and just observing me. Because when I went to do the first walk, it was the back door key. I opened the back door, he flew out, pinned me against the shed, took a chunk out of my leg somehow on the way, and I've still got the scar. And thank goodness I had behavioural qualifications already at that point, because I knew sort of, okay, I'm not going to make eye contact. And I think if I had made eye contact, I probably wouldn't have a face. But gradually, the only way I could get move was I ended up backing into their kitchen and sitting at their dining table while he was in the doorway watching me. And I just started eating fruit out of their fruit bowl and just chilling, basically, or trying to calm my heart rate down. Just trying to think what on earth to do. But because I had that injury, I was off work for a bit. So when you're self-employed, if you haven't got that insurance and you make sure your insurance level is of adequate cover, your income's reliant on it, isn't it?
So we launched the Pet Pro Challenge at Groomfest last weekend, and we had loads of people getting their logo, their picture taken with the logo and stuff. And then on the Tuesday, so this was on the almost been the Wednesday. So this was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we were at Groomfest. And on the Wednesday, I got a message from one of the groomers that we had spoken to at Groomfest. And it was just a picture of their thumb with a big gash out of it with, "This is why I have insurance."
Oh, gosh.
And that's it. It's actually, they then had 2 days off work. At least 2 days off work. They had to go and get tetanus and 2 days off work. And actually, because they're insured, that loss of income is covered. You know, that's not just protecting the dog, the dog owner and the dog, but actually their livelihood.
Oh, I wish Em was able to make this week, but because of the time with New Zealand, because she's in New Zealand and us, it can be tricky sometimes for her. But I'll try and remember to talk to her about it on our next podcast episode, because she's literally just opened her own centre. So she's just got her own premises, and she's a holistic groomer and also a behavioural consultant. So she's got a kind of all-in-one centre now for everything, and it would be great to talk to her about the legislation around licensing and the standards professionally over in New Zealand as well. Are you mainly supporting UK business owners?
Yeah, I mean, we are very new. So we have very grand ambitions. So I wouldn't limit anything. The reality is professional businesses and ethical business practices translate across the countries. While our members can access discounts that are UK based, so discounts on training and products. Obviously, if you're an international member, you would miss out on those discounts. But actually, the other support that we offer would be equally as available to you.
Yeah,
I don't have the same knowledge on New Zealand legislation. I would have to say, I'm not sure, because we have, so the Alliance has a primary authority partnership for both England and Wales. And what that primary authority partnership means is that if you're a licensed business or you're about to become a licensed business, you can get assured advice from us. So that's not my opinion on what the legislation and guidance says. That is City of London or Monmouthshire Council's understanding of the legislation, and that has to then be followed by your licensing officer. So, for example, we had an inquiry bizarrely about DBS, actually. So we work with an organisation who delivers animal encounters across the country. Their headquarters are in Scotland. They deliver animal encounters across the country through their rangers. And they've been licensed by probably about 15 different licensing inspectors from various different local authorities. And for the first time ever, they were asked about DBS. Now, all of their rangers have DBS certificates, but obviously DBS takes a while to come through. It's not always particularly prompt, and the DBS hadn't arrived. And they weren't going to get their license because of this. Now, actually, the licensing is very much about the animal's welfare. The licensing doesn't ask about DBS. Absolutely, it's best practice, and absolutely, if you're going into schools and things, you will need to have it. But that's not what your licensing officer is checking. Your licensing officer is checking the animal's welfare. So they came to us and they said, look, we've heard this inquiry. What do we say? And actually, as assured advice, we're able to go back and say to them, we're more than happy to comply with all licensing conditions. Can you please confirm to me where this condition is? Because it's not one. And actually, while I have it and it's on its way, this isn't something that should be stopping me moving forward, because that's not your responsibility to check. We've had other inquiries about accommodation sizes in catteries and how to get sort of around that, not get around that, but actually
navigate.
Yes. So our primary authority partnerships allow us to provide assured advice that then has to be followed through by the local authority that's carrying out the inspections. So I wouldn't be able to offer that to somebody in New Zealand, but that's not to say that actually there isn't other support in terms of running an ethical business that we could offer.
Absolutely. So just thinking there on picking up on something you mentioned there about the different inspectors going out, is there much variance between how councils, regulations, inspections sort of reports vary, and how can a business navigate that?
Unfortunately, there is still. We are working hard from both sides of this to solve that. It doesn't help that both Scotland, England and Wales have different guidance and different, even not even just the guidance, but actually the act that it falls under for licensing. So, for example, in England, licensed activities include, under the animal activities licence, includes daycare, home boarding, kennels, catteries, pet shops. In Wales, under the activities licence, it's breeding and pet shops, and boarding all still comes under the old Animal Boarding Establishments Act. So they've got two separate acts to cover animal licensing. Scotland pulled most things into the animal activities licensing, but also included some nice little extras. So Scotland also license cat breeders, rabbit breeders, animal welfare establishments, and I can't quite remember what they call the other one, but basically animal rescue centres and people who are bringing animals into the country under the guise potentially of rescue. So Scotland actually licensed a wider range of animal activities than either England or Wales do. So that doesn't help the situation, the fact that each devolved nation is looking at something slightly different and looking at it in a slightly different way. In terms of within England, for example, the guidance is the guidance and the whole of the country should be following that guidance. There is some interpretation and there is some variation, I would say, depending on how knowledgeable your inspector is. So you will have inspectors who are very new to the animal world, and therefore those inspections tend to be a little bit more of a tick box exercise. The guidance says this, it's very black and white, this is what I need to see. Whereas those inspectors, and there are some fantastic inspectors who, whole life has been dedicated to animal welfare. They very much look at it much more holistically and really consider how the animal's needs are being met rather than necessarily this is what the guidance says, X, Y, and Z. So there is variation, and that's part of the reason that our primary authority partnership can really help members, because actually you come to a very centralised point with City of London, who are our primary authority partnership for England, very experienced. They have a whole team of animal welfare specialist inspectors, and you get the guidance that is bespoke to you. The reality is, in some local authorities, especially some smaller local authorities, the animal licensing officer may be responsible for the licensing of taxis, pubs, topless bars, explosives, cigarette shops, and animal care. So they may not have the depth of knowledge to really assess, especially if it's an animal encounter that happens to have meerkats or wallabies or capybara. They're not going to know in the same way. But when we deliver the training, all of our inspectors are always told that they are there to audit a premise. So if they're not sure on something, the question should always be to the proprietor, explain to me how this animal's need is met. So actually they don't have to be the specialist, they just have to know the right questions to ask. We are supporting those officers in being able to ask the right questions, to have the confidence that that licensee is a competent person to run that business. But it's complicated.
It's so complicated, and it's an absolute minefield, which is why I'm so grateful to have met you however many years ago, and to have you to message and go, Vicky. I think we all need Vicky in our corner. If you are listening in and you would like to get in touch with Vicky, how is the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, so we are on email. So it's vicky@animalfocused.co.uk or vicky@animalfocusedalliance.co.uk. We have both. It's VICKY. And we have our website, which is www.animalfocusedalliance.co.uk. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn with the Animal Focused Alliance handle.
Fantastic. Just before we wrap up, what one area would you say is often overlooked that people could easily fix if they're listening in as a dog professional?
I firmly believe that the best way to move the industry forward is to inform the owners. I would encourage open conversations about insurance, about qualifications, about your emergency procedures. The more transparent you are about things, the more confidence that pet owner will have in you, but also the more they'll look to other pet professionals and start to ask those sorts of questions. And that is how I think we will really raise the standard across the whole of the industry. Be open, encourage these conversations. When you're doing something right, shout about the fact you're doing it right. Shout about the fact you're insured. Shout about the fact that you're qualified, that you've done some CPD, that you've had a fantastic review. If you're doing it right, be proud of that fact.
Love that. Thank you so much for joining us, Vicky. Really appreciate you hopping on and sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Next week, coming up, we have got the wonderful Carrie Westgarth, who's going to be talking to us about aging dogs and providing us with a toolkit to support dogs as they hit their latter years. So exciting to tune in for that one next week. That's Tuesday, the 30th of September at 7:30 p.m. Or you can listen back on all of the major podcast channels. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Dog Expert Podcast, the podcast dogs would want you to listen to. If you've enjoyed this episode, do come and let us know in our free Facebook group for dog lovers everywhere, Ethical Dog Training with Canine Principles. That way we can make more content like this that you'll love. We would love for you to leave a review on here and hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode.